All right, let's open up the data logs. Welcome to this explainer. I'm your host, an Utrom researcher, and today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating field log. We'll be looking at the time our collective was stranded on your planet Earth and examining those chaotic biological anomalies our technology accidentally spawned. I mean, what you guys call this epic, street-level saga of mutated heroes, we basically just catalog as a sequence of unintended chemical reactions. We're going to assess the sheer logic, or entirely the lack thereof, behind everything that went down during our little terrestrial exile.
A galaxy of warring children. Honestly, this quote perfectly hits the nail on the head regarding how we view the local inhabitants. Being a peaceful, highly advanced collective, looking out at the universe often feels exactly like supervising a kindergarten playground. Whether we're talking about humanity or those wildly aggressive triceratops across the cosmos, we're constantly seeing this primitive obsession with territorial conflict and ego. We, on the other hand, are all about logic and survival.
Which brings us right into Section 1, Stranded in a Hostile World.
Looking at our data timeline, we were stuck on Earth for roughly 20 years. After a really severe malfunction, our vessel basically crash-landed on your planet. And since we couldn't repair our ship, and well, we exist as these highly vulnerable, peaceful, brain-like entities, we literally had to hide just to survive. So to blend into your society, we built these advanced humanoid exoskeletons to conceal our true forms. That led us to set up a corporate front, the Techno-Cosmic Research Institute, or TCRI. Every single move we made over those 2 decades was mathematically calculated for one specific purpose.
And that purpose was the Transmat, a long-range teleporter. See, our main goal was absolutely never planetary conquest or infiltration or ruling over humanity. No way. We literally just wanted to build a machine so we could execute a quiet, perfectly logical retreat. We just wanted to go home.
So let's move on to Section 2, the anomaly of creation.
Okay, so here's where things get incredibly ironic for your world's subterranean ecosystem. We were quietly moving some canisters of what you humans call the ooze, but for us, it was literally just a discarded byproduct of Utrom technology. Trash, basically. Then, a human truck accident happens, ironically witnessed by a young Matt Murdock, and boom, a canister gets knocked loose and falls into the sewer. So, what the locals see as this mythic superhero origin story, to us, it was just a transit failure causing some unfortunate physical reactions that mutated a bunch of local turtles and a rat.
This kind of makes us reluctant gods, right? We view these accidental creations with a ton of scientific curiosity, maybe mixed with a tiny bit of mild guilt. But we absolutely never wanted to lead, guide, or master them. They weren't some planned military experiment, they were just tragic accidents in a vast, uncaring universe.
All right, let's look at Section 3, pacifism versus tribal warfare.
Just look at the stark contrast here. On the Utrom side, you have strict nonviolence, an absolute refusal to use lethal force, and frankly, moral purity. But on the other side, the anomaly we created, literal trained assassins steeped in tribal warfare. The fact that we refuse to kill makes the violent, revenge-obsessed nature of our own creations feel so much more tragic. We completely accidentally birthed monsters that just perfectly adapted to Earth's highly violent frequencies.
And this cultural disconnect completely exploded during what we commonly refer to as the TCRI misunderstanding. We had actually rescued their mutated rat mentor, Splinter, and we were using our advanced tech to nurse him back to health. But how was our medical assistance greeted? With an impulsive, totally unprovoked attack by the turtles. The ensuing chaos accidentally triggered the Transmat and flung our attackers all the way across the galaxy to the Triceratops homeworld. Just a completely illogical outcome, driven 100% by human-style aggression.
Let's transition to Section 4, logic over individual ego. Why fight for territory when survival demands departure? We had to ask this incredibly logical question when the human National Guard finally found our operations and laid siege to our headquarters.
An Earth species would probably dig in, right? You'd defend your property, go out in a blaze of glory to protect your honor. But why engage in that kind of vanity? When the military compromised TCRI, we didn't stay to fight. There was zero defense of property, no ego-driven last stand. We simply initiated the self-destruct sequence to protect our tech, and we escaped through the Transmat. We prioritized the survival of our species over personal glory, because mathematically, it's the only rational equation.
And you know, this psychological reality is literally mirrored in the disguises we wore. Our mechanical exoskeletons, these expressionless, unfeeling robotic shells, perfectly symbolize our necessary emotional detachment.
We stay safely insulated behind them, keeping a strict, clinical distance from the petty, highly emotional conflicts of your world.
Which brings us to our final part. Section 5. Assessing an immature species.
We essentially operate as a collective adult intelligence. We're emotionally detached and completely focused on preserving our species. Meanwhile, we're navigating a galaxy full of immature, impulsive locals. Humanity, the Triceratons, you're entirely driven by ego, incredibly aggressive over territory, and so quick to shed blood. To us, you literally are warring children trapped in these endless cycles of retribution.
But hey, in the spirit of objective scientific reporting, we have to admit we aren't totally perfect. Our logs do note the Utrom Preservator. They're a darker splinter group dedicated to harvesting the memories of dead Utroms. Yeah, it's a practice that definitely reveals a cold, clinical edge to our culture that you human observers would probably find deeply unsettling, or, let's be real, pretty creepy.
Because, you see, our absolute pacifism comes at a massive cost. Individuality is sacrificed entirely for the sake of our collective history. The needs and identity of the individual are completely absorbed by the many. That's a totally alien concept to the tribal warriors of Earth, right? You guys are defined by defending the individual. And yet, despite these massive psychological gaps, logic dictated that we eventually return to Earth to establish formal diplomatic relations. Because, at the end of the day, communication is simply more efficient than isolation.
So, as we wrap up this field log, I want to leave you with one final question. Are the true monsters the violent anomalies of Earth, or the cold, clinical logic that accidentally birthed them? You look at the mutants in your sewers and see violence, but who bears the real moral responsibility here? Is it the impulsive creatures fighting in the dark, or is it the detached logic that carelessly dropped the catalyst and simply walked away? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until our next data review, keep questioning your world.